you need to be willing to bear criticism. Rotted studs. There's no sill plate. It's completely rotted out. What's actually holding this barn up? Hi there, folks. Welcome back to the Yeostead. As 2024 wraps up, I wanted to spend some time reflecting on the year. Things I was able to get done, areas where I fell short, and things I'd like to get done in 2025. I'll admit 2024 was pretty slow in terms of fancy, big new projects. A lot of that comes down to the fact that things were tighter financially since I lost my full-time job back in January. Now I do have a part-time job now, but the bulk of our discretionary spending this year went to a new family vehicle, a new family car. Technically not new, but you know what I mean. New to us, gently used. Our old car just wasn't reliable anymore, and it was a big, expensive priority. Bigger homestead projects, unfortunately, had to take a back seat. And you know what? In years past, I would have apologized for that. You know, part of what makes these videos interesting is always having big, crazy, cool projects on the go. The longer I do this, the more I start to realize that this is homesteading. This is self-sufficiency. This year, I was fortunate enough to fill our freezers with animals that we raised here on the homestead, fill our pantry and our cellar with veggies and potatoes and things that we grew in our garden, breakfast pans with eggs that our chickens laid. That's it. That's part of the goal. That's part of the end goal that we've always had, was just to get to a place where we were growing or raising most of our own food. And we did that this year. So let me start with that as item number one of the things that I'm happy about completing in 2024. We got a lot of food out of this place. Meat chickens for the freezer, turkeys for the freezers. We actually still have pork from Frank and Beans, our pigs, in the freezer from 2 years ago? We still have pork left. And a ton of eggs and veggies and potatoes, things like that from our garden. Was it 100% of our groceries? Absolutely not. I would say maybe, if we're being very charitable, 40 to 50%. Depends on the season, obviously. But for a family on a budget, knowing that we always have access to very high quality premium food that we raise or that we grow is huge. And I'm very confident in saying that that's something we pulled off with no problem this year. And that was the original end goal for moving on this homestead in the very first place, was being able to do just that. And we did it. Related to that, we actually started incubating chicks this year. It took us long enough. It was our 4th year here, and we finally got an incubator and started hatching out our own chicks, which we had several successful hatch outs this year. Another thing I'm pleased about this year was updating the barn stall to a functional place for chickens. We have 4 barn stalls in our barn. Last year at this time, only 1 was usable. I updated this one. I included this egg box. I built this egg box, which the chickens are obviously laying eggs in. Made it into a really great coop for our chickens. I'm proud of the little hanging chicken Murphy bed that I created, which I can fold up and hang on that hook or take off of these chains. This is a great place for our meat chickens. We are getting eggs regularly from our meat chickens, and I think we'll start, speaking of hatching out eggs, I think we'll probably start hatching out our breast eggs just to always have meat chickens on the go. This was something I did in 2024 that I'm pretty proud of. I'm glad I knocked this out. The water system with the tote that I set up next to the barn has been great. The water has already filled up. It took like 2 days of rain to fill this thing up. It didn't take long at all. And we've been using this water to water our chickens and our turkeys, water all of our birds. And once it gets warm enough and we start on the garden again, we'll be using all this water for our gardening needs. I'm also really proud of clearing out all the brush here. This was a big forested area just covered with scrub brush. And there's a lot of junk in the ground here. Just piled up old industrial waste, which you can see I've stacked up over there. And not only did I clear this whole area out, but I also planted sunflower seeds from a bag of just cheap sunflower seeds that you give to birds. And this was a field of sunflowers. It was really pretty. And the reason I did sunflowers is because they'll actually suck up toxins out of the ground. I'll probably do that again next year. But again, that's something we'll talk about a little bit more in terms of my plans for 2025. Regardless, this was a big, ugly, unusable, wasted space right here. And now it's opened up. Another cool project that was started on in 2024 is this Bunkhouse, extra living space / office space. Dad started working on it in 2024. I helped out a little bit. Obviously, we didn't finish it. We still need to get the roof. I need to get the inside, get electric and all of that stuff. It was a project that we got a surprising amount done just in the few months we've been working on it. And I mean, just looking at it, it looks incredible. So we're going to continue working on this, but I'm happy with the progress that I've seen Dad make on this thing in 2024. I was also able to build or update a couple of little shelter pieces. The pig house was really easy. I updated this from an earlier kind of janky design that I had, as well as the roost tower that I built from scratch, based on a design that I really liked from Justin Rhodes. It wasn't an exact copy, but it was very close to it. I got a lot of inspiration from it, and I really liked building that. I'll probably end up building more of these types of things in 2025, depending on what our animal population, our livestock population will look like in 2025. But again, more on that in the goals section here in a few minutes. Now, what about the mistakes that I've made in 2024? There's a lot of them. Someone recently characterized my channel. There's a thread I was reading online, and they characterized my channel as bonehead decision after bonehead decision. And I think they went on to explain that they just couldn't watch my channel anymore because all the stupid things I was doing. To which I have a couple of thoughts. Number one, anytime you put your world out publicly, the decisions that you make on your home or your property, or personal decisions that you take on for the scrutiny of thousands of people every week, you need to be willing to bear criticism. And that's something I do. I willingly take that on. I understand that opening up my world for the world to see every week, for thousands of people to tell me what I'm doing right or what I'm doing wrong, that will come with a lot of opinions. For the most part, those opinions are constructive and good. Occasionally there's trolls that go in and say stupid stuff, but for the most part, the criticism that I get is good, and I love it. It helps me grow. The second thing I'll say about that, yes, I'm displaying my mistakes for the world to see. By doing so, maybe someone will see that and avoid making the same mistakes. When I do something stupid, it would be easy for me to just edit it out and not show it. But I think it's important that I show it to people so they don't repeat those mistakes. Let's actually get to some of those mistakes. What are some of the mistakes I made in 2024? Well, the first one I can think of off the top of my head is spraying for termites. Just reflexively, I saw a colony of termites hatching, and I went out and bought a chemical termite spray and sprayed it. And there's several reasons why that was stupid and knee-jerk on my part. The first one is that those termites probably weren't gonna stay here. What happens is a colony will spawn out of like an old tree stump or something and then go fly off somewhere else. They don't necessarily go straight to your old barn and start eating down your old barn, which is what I was thinking in my head when I saw those termites, like, oh, they're right next to the barn, I better spray them. But that's not the case. A woman commented after she saw, I lost a lot of subscribers from doing that. And one woman commented, you never think about what you do before you make decisions on your homestead. And I kindly push back and say, mostly I do, but I definitely didn't in that case. Did it kill the termites? Probably so. Was it a mistake to do that so close to my garden? Yes, absolutely. Will I ever do it again? No, I learned my lesson there. I should have done more research. What are some other mistakes I've made? I didn't change out my outflow pipe on my sump pump when I moved in, and I should have done that a long time ago when we had that big snowstorm back in January. That froze up and there was no water getting out of the sump pump. And when things started to thaw out and warm up, we faced a really dangerous situation where no water would be able to get out of that sump pump if things were flooding down in the basement, which would have gotten ugly. So I ended up fixing it before anything went wrong, but that was something I missed and was a big miss on my part. What else? I didn't trim the turkeys' wing feathers often enough, and we had several turkeys escape. One almost never came back. She came back with a limp. I almost lost her just because I wasn't trimming their wings often enough. Those are the three that pop to the top of my head. There are more. I'm sure when I sit down after I record this, 7 more mistakes will pop up in my head. So with that being said, let's go in a more optimistic direction and talk about the things I want to do in 2025. The first big project this year, and the one that I don't want to say dreading, but the one that's going to be the most involved, is insulating our attic. We have gotten quotes. We gotten our friend Jim from Two Turtles Homestead to come out here and give his thoughts on using closed cell spray foam on the underside of our roof here. It's a metal roof. Currently there's a thin layer of the pink batting insulation. It's really not doing it, and this place turns into an oven in the summer, like literally well over 100 degrees up here every day in the summer. It's too hot to be functional. We can't store anything up here because like plastic stuff will melt. We obviously can't work up here or sleep up here. It's just a dead space that we can do nothing with. So before the summer months, before the warm months, ideally by May, we really want to take down the drywall, figure out what we're going to do for insulation. If it's not spray foam, then it'll be maybe something like the rock wall that Nate and Katie are using in their house. We need to discuss it, but this is going to be a big project. I think in the next few weeks, I'm going to start taking down the drywall. And a concern that I have is, obviously, it's angled up here, as you can see, but a big concern that I have is whether or not there's space in the soffit area here on the outside, how we're going to seal that up. It's really hard to articulate and explain what I mean. I can show you some outdoor pictures of what I'm talking about. The roof angles down below the floor of the attic space. And so there's a lot of extra space that's unaccounted for that we'll need to find a way to seal up, because we want this to be an envelope up here of air up here. So this is a big project. This is going to be an expensive project. This is going to be huge. After we've taken down the drywall and we've put up the insulation, we're really keen on the idea of putting up tongue and groove. This is the biggie. This is the number one project that pops into my head of just something we got to get done. If we push it off another year, we could, but it's another year where we just don't have a functional space up here in the summer. The next big project I want to take on, probably soon, this might be the very first project I take on, is fixing up this barn stall to accommodate piglets. We've really been talking a lot about getting piglets again. It's something that we mentioned last year. Last year just couldn't happen, but we want to do them again, but we need a place for them to live. Now this barn stall is spoken for with our meat chickens, and we're going to probably be hatching out more meat chickens to live in there. But I'd like the piglets and the meat chickens to live together. I think they can. If not, I'll create a separate fence system. But this barn stall needs to be fixed up. It's in rough shape. One thing that really concerns me, and take a look at these studs. When I initially saw the studs and I saw that they're rotted out at the bottom, I'm like, okay, I'll sister them up and bring them down. But the more you look at this, the more concerning it is, not just for this stall, but for the whole structure. Normally there's, what do they call them, sill plates down here. The sill plates are either extremely rotted or just gone altogether, and the foundation concrete down here is in decent shape, but there's some places where it's kind of cracked. The more I look at this, I'm like, okay, there's these rotted studs, there's no sill plate, it's completely rotted out. What's actually holding this barn up? And there are some places, this stud right here is clearly bearing weight, bearing the weight of the structure. This one isn't. It's just floating. Same with this one, it's just floating. It's not bearing a load at all. And you walk around the barn, and there's a lot of places like that where load-bearing studs, or they're supposed to be load-bearing, are rotted out. That's going to lead to a much bigger discussion of, number one, how safe is this barn? How safe is this structure? Am I in danger just being in here? It's always been kind of an afterthought. It's like, okay, this is the old barn. This is where we store stuff, where we put animals. But now I'm thinking like, okay, how much structural integrity does this building have at all? And there are several points where it's clear that it's in good shape, where there's a healthy sill plate underneath and stud is in good shape or decent enough shape for a barn. But there's a lot of studs that aren't. How bad is this? Is it something I can fix? Can I get some bottle jacks, lift up the affected areas, put in new sill plates? Like, what all will need to be involved? Another thing I'm wondering, how much structural support are these lean-tos giving? There's a lean-to on the north end here and a lean-to on the south end. Would this structure have toppled if it weren't for these lean-tos? These lean-tos are in good shape, by the way. I'm not a structural engineer, so I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know. It's a long-term question. It's something I've got to think about. I think I'm going to do a Band-Aid fix on this wall right here, take out some of the old nasty siding, replace that, shore this up, get some piglets in here. But long term, this is a deeper conversation. This is something I need to think about, just for the safety of my family, just for us walking around in here. One thing I will say, we used to have, when we moved in, we had a really bad leak issue, several points of water entry in the roof that we've since shored up. I mean, it was maybe the first year we were here, we replaced a lot of the roofing here. So if nothing else, we have at least stopped the bleeding in terms of new water damage that's coming in on the structure itself. I do see us finishing the bunkhouse in 2025. I think by this time next year it will be, if not complete, very, very close to complete. We got to do the roof, we got to do insulation, we got to do walls, we got to do electrical. But that's something Dad's going to be focusing on as his main project. I'll come in and I'll help here and there, but this is going to be Dad's main project. I'm really excited to see this project complete because we've been recording and filming it from the very beginning. So it'll be kind of cool to see its transition from just like a really old, nasty shed into a cool living and office space. 2025, we're probably going to grow sunflowers again in this area. I'd like to make sure that we've got all the nasty junk that was in the ground here before, including the termite stuff I sprayed right over there. So that is something we're probably going to do again in 2025. But one thing that Holly and I saw that we really were intrigued by was a strawberry trellis. I'll show a picture of what we saw online. It looks like it's really easy to build. We got a bunch of old gutter that you can use on these strawberry trellises. We may give one of those a shot and put it back here. Our thornless blackberry has been great. It just thrives in this soil. The red or the black raspberries that we got over here, you see all this bramble? I was thinking about just cutting it, but this produces so much in the way of black raspberries, and those things are delicious. So we're gonna continue treating this as a blackberry patch, see what happens with the blueberries, maybe grow strawberries. And then of course we got our apple trees and our fig tree over there as well, which all seem to be doing okay. One of the things that goes without saying, if you have any sort of acreage or property, is that you need to clear brush. That's a perpetual job, always needs to be done. And that's something that I think Dad and I want to take a little bit more seriously this year, especially with the idea of potentially upgrading our fencing one year. Let's take a look at what you see here, all this brush, and then take a look at our neighbor's property across on the other side of this fence here. It's a barbed wire fence. You can't even see it because there's so much brush. We would love to continue having woods like this, but get them to where you can walk through them, like you see over here. This is impenetrable. You can't do anything here. So one of the things that Dad and I have talked about is potentially investing in some sort of bush hog, whether that's for the tractor or push behind, a walk behind. This would be a big investment, but it would be an investment that we'd use for years. So that, more to come on that. I think that's something we're gonna do probably here in the next few months because the undergrowth hasn't grown back yet. So the next few months would be an ideal time to start clearing brush away and actually open up our land where a lot of it's just impenetrable and useless because it's covered over with brush. And not all thick foliage is bad. There's obviously lots of wildlife, flora and fauna that makes this foliage their home. But we want to open it up a little bit more than it currently is. And there's different ways to do that other than bush hogs. I know obviously the pigs did a great job of clearing land. It was a bit detrimental. It turned it into a moonscape, a lot of it. Goats will do that kind of thing. But right now we're thinking some sort of brush clear, especially for along the edge of the property where we could potentially upgrade a fence line in the future. I salvaged a bunch of old windows from down in that barn stall. And I haven't decided what I'm going to do with them yet. One of the things I could do, obviously, is sell them or even get rid of them. But part of me thinks it would be cool to build some sort of cool little greenhouse structure with all these old antique windows. Some are antique, some are newer, but either way, there's some cool things you can do with these. So more to come on that. It's not a priority. It'd be a fun little side project, but it's something I'm thinking about. When I think of 2025 and the things I'd like to get done, those are the items that are at the top of my head. Will I be able to get all of them done? I don't know. Will there be other smaller things I can take on? Probably so. All of this comes down to money, just being honest with you guys. What you see here is what you get. We're just a family that got into this game back in 2020 after the pandemic, and we were freaked out about food, and we still love to do it. It's not easy, and sometimes it is just survival, and sometimes years will go by where we don't do too much and we just reap the fruits that we have. And I think 2024 was kind of that year. I think 2025 is gonna be focused more on infrastructure stuff. So it's good for me to get this video out because it keeps me accountable as the year goes on. That's it for 2024. I'm closing the book on 2024 and I'm excited to go into 2025 and having you guys come with me. So thanks for joining me on this little impromptu year-end tour. And until I see you again next year, remember, as always, slowly, slowly.